Imagine being told that saving your own child over two strangers is morally wrong, or that your dog might deserve to live more than a human baby. These aren't random claims from the internet. They're carefully argued positions by the world's most influential living philosopher. And once you hear his logic, you might never see morality the same way again. 3 months ago, I had the chance to interview Peter Singer. What he told me about ethics and morality left me questioning everything I thought I knew about right and wrong. And today I'm going to show you why his ideas might change your entire view of life and death. Before we dive in, let me warn you, this isn't comfortable stuff. Singer has been banned from speaking in multiple countries. He's received death threats. People have tried to physically attack him at lectures. But here's the crazy part. Once you understand his logic, it's almost impossible to argue against. Let's start with the idea that got him in the most trouble. In 1979, Singer wrote something that made people lose their minds. He suggested that parents should have the right to end the life of their severely disabled newborns. Universities literally banned him for this. But wait till you hear his reasoning. Singer asked, "Why do we think killing a newborn is worse than killing an adult? An adult has hopes, dreams, can feel fear about death. A newborn can't." In fact, Singer argued, adult animals might have more awareness and capacity for suffering than newborn humans. This idea was so explosive that people still protest about it today. But that's just the beginning. Singer then dropped an even bigger bomb. He claimed most of us are murderers. Yes, you heard that right. Every time you buy something you don't need instead of donating that money to save a life, Singer argues you're choosing to let someone die. Think about this. Right now, you could donate $200 to an effective charity and literally save a child's life. Instead, you might spend that money on a nice dinner or some new shoes. Singer asks, how is this any different from walking past a drowning child because you don't want to ruin your clothes? Here's where things get wild. Singer applied this same brutal logic to elderly care. He asked, why do we spend millions keeping one elderly person alive for a few extra months when that same money could save hundreds of young lives in developing countries? I watched him present this argument to a room full of medical ethicists. Half of them stormed out. The other half couldn't find any logical holes in his argument. But wait, it gets even more intense. Singer completely revolutionized how we think about animals. Back in the 1970s, he coined the term animal liberation. He pointed out something that seems obvious now but was revolutionary then. If animals can suffer, why do we act like their suffering doesn't matter? Here's the mind-bending part. Singer showed that there's no logical reason to value human suffering more than animal suffering. He called this speciesism, discriminating against beings just because they're not human. It's like racism, but for species. When I interviewed Singer about this, he told me something fascinating. He said most people claim to care about animal welfare, but their actions show they care more about the taste of a hamburger than the entire life of a cow. The math on this is shocking. A single person choosing to be vegetarian saves around 100 animals per year from factory farming. But Singer wasn't done shocking the world. He then took on one of society's biggest taboos, sex and disability. He argued that if sex between consenting adults makes them happy and doesn't harm anyone, there's no logical reason to restrict it. This got him in huge trouble with religious groups. Here's where Singer's ideas get really personal. He looks at how much money we spend on pets in rich countries, about $50 billion per year in the US alone. That same money could solve world hunger. He asks, how do we justify buying organic dog food while human children starve? I tried following Singer's ethics for a month. I calculated exactly how much I spent on unnecessary things. The total was shocking. It was enough to save multiple lives through effective charities. This is what makes Singer's philosophy so powerful. It's not just abstract ideas, it's about choices we make every day. But Singer doesn't just criticize. He lives his values. He donates over 40% of his income to effective charities. He's personally helped spark the effective altruism movement, which now moves billions of dollars toward the most effective ways to reduce suffering. Let me show you one of his most powerful thought experiments. Imagine you're walking past a shallow pond wearing expensive clothes. You see a child drowning. Would you ruin your clothes to save them? Of course! Now Singer hits you with the twist. How is that any different from keeping your expensive clothes while knowing that same money could save a child's life through charity? Here's another mind-bender. Singer challenges the idea that human life is sacred. He asks, if a being can't think about the future, feel complex emotions, or have relationships, why do we value keeping it alive at all costs? This led him to controversial positions on euthanasia, abortion, and end-of-life care. When I brought this up in the interview, Singer told me something chilling. He said our descendants will look back at how we treat animals and the global poor the same way we look back at slavery. They'll be horrified that we could ignore such obvious suffering just because it wasn't right in front of us. But Singer's ideas go even deeper. He's challenged how we think about incest, suggesting that if it's between consenting adults and can't result in children, there's no logical reason to forbid it. This got him in such hot water that some countries banned him from speaking. Here's what's really fascinating. Singer's philosophy extends to climate change, too. He argues that flying for vacation is morally wrong because the pleasure you get doesn't justify the harm done to future generations through climate change. I recently spoke with someone who went all in on Singer's ideas. They live on $15,000 a year and give everything else to effective charities. They haven't bought new clothes in years. No restaurants, no movies, no vacations. They've probably saved hundreds of lives. But here's the twist. They're incredibly happy because they know their life has real meaning. They're not just talking about making the world better, they're actually doing it. Singer's latest work is even more mind-blowing. He's starting to explore questions about artificial intelligence and consciousness. He asks, if we create AI that can suffer, do we have moral obligations to it? Should robots have rights? The really crazy part? Despite being one of the most controversial philosophers alive, Singer is also one of the most respected. Even people who hate his conclusions admit that his arguments are incredibly hard to refute logically. Think about this. Every time you buy a coffee, you're saying that coffee is worth more than saving a life. Singer just asks us to be honest about that choice, to think clearly about what our actions really mean. What keeps me up at night is this. What if Singer is right? What if we're living in a time of massive moral failure and don't even realize it? What if future generations judge us not by our intentions, but by the suffering we could have prevented but didn't? This is why Singer matters more now than ever. In a world facing climate change, factory farming, artificial intelligence, and extreme poverty, we need to think clearly about moral choices. We need to expand our circle of concern beyond our immediate surroundings. If you want to go deeper into how philosophy can completely change how you see the world, hit subscribe. Because next week, I'm diving into another philosopher whose ideas are even more radical than Singer's. Imagine being told that saving your own child over